So, before I begin the message, I just want to start with a small thing that I have watched last month. It's a very small video that I had watched on a social media. It's about a crocodile bank. It's a crocodile bank, and how many of you have went and watched these crocodiles and the other things, the reptiles in the zoo and in the Guinea Park you would have seen. So in that video, in a crocodile bank, there was a lot of crocodiles, and in the middle of the bank we see a pool, a swimming pool for the crocodiles to have a good rest under the water. We also see a lot of crocodiles taking rest on the sides of the walls. So usually these crocodiles won't be fed in a regular basis. So younger crocodiles or alligators, they will be fed once or thrice in a week. So that's how the food days are allotted for them. Then think about huge and large crocodiles that are present in that place. So as I was watching there, so we don't know how many days the crocodiles went hungry, or how many days it just before it had its lunch or anything. But a live duck was thrown inside the crocodile bank, and this live duck, it just passed and went through the crocodiles that were standing there, and this duck went to some distance inside, and it just stamped 2 or 3 crocodiles. And as it was moving inside, so inside we have a lot of crocodiles. As it was moving inside, and suddenly 1 or 2 crocodiles just looked this duck walking in, and as the duck was walking, these crocodiles, some 1 or 2, opened its mouth to eat the duck. This duck immediately noticed that these crocodiles are ready to eat it, and it just returned very fast. And while it was returning, it also stamped some crocodiles and just came to a corner of the site. At the bottom of the video, I saw a caption put up there, and the caption was, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil." So today we will look at a similar kind of incident that happened in the Bible, and more importantly from the life of David. So because David in his life was similar to this duck. So a lot of crocodiles David faced during his lifetime, not just 1 or 2, it was many. And crocodiles in the life of David were from both outside as well as from the inside, from his own family as well as from the other people who were outside. And today we will look how God's greatest miracle and how David's God rescued David from all these dangers. So this meditation is all about God and his wonderful leading of David. So David recalls and recollects all God's leading in his life when he became a king, and when he just stepped into his throne, and he just remembers all the good things and the good leading that God done in the life of David, and he writes these words. Let us turn our Bibles to Psalms 23 verse 4. Psalms 23 verse 4, it says, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." This is the thing that we are going to meditate today. So there is no Psalms that has no experience. So each and every psalm, when we read it, we get a great experience from that. And every psalm and every word has so many experience within itself. That is why even today, when we meditate the psalm, we can place ourselves in the place of David. And we can always relate things to our context. So that's the very most beautiful thing about the writings of the Psalms. So in this Psalms 23:4, we got beautiful message for all of us from God. So once again, let us read together Psalms 23 verse 4 together loudly. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Though David wrote the psalm, but the innermost and the topmost reason behind it, behind those writings, was God's greatest act. So we will meditate on that today, how David and God's relationship was, and what all God did in life of David. Firstly, we will look at this one sentence: even though I walk through the darkest valley. So first we will meditate this. In the life of David, we see that he faced many challenges, many obstacles face to face. Once, while David was young, once he faced a lion face to face, and another time he faced a bear face to face, and sometimes later he faced so many people, faced so many challenges very closely, very face to face. And all these things happened in David's life, all in different forms and at different times. So we see how David's life would have been. So when David rose from his bed, at the very early in the morning he had a problem, and in the afternoon he had another problem, and the evening time he had another problem, and in the night time he had another problem, different kind of problem. So all these problems are not just simple problems, but it was a very huge problem for David. Not just these problems were fear-making problems, but it was kind of death-fearing, bringing death-fearing problems to David. So David had to cross many ups and downs in his life. He had to cross many challenges. He had to cross many fears. He had to cross many frightening realms of death and frightening incidents. And we will look how did David manage all these challenges and how did he cross. Today, that's a meditation. And in this verse we see David not just tells about a problem, a specific problem, but about something huge that no human could handle. So no human can ever handle by themselves. It was such a great trouble that he had. These words are not just poems. So as we read in the literatures, English literatures, the poems and the prose and the other events, so we can just simply read this Psalms as like one of the poems, or you can just look at this verse and tell that it's just a story about someone in the Bible, about a person called David, or you can tell that it's just an imaginary story. It's not just a real incident, but according to the Bible, all these things that we are going to meditate on, the verse that we read, is a very true incident that happened to David. So the reason why the Psalms and all these verses speak to us today is because those things are real. So those things, those incidents were true and real. So that's why even after all these centuries, many thousands of years across, we still look this verse and read it, and still it speaks to us in our situations. So that's the beauty and the uniqueness of the Psalms. So he tells that darkest valley. So that's the most insisting point, darkest valley. So there are many meanings for this one word, and we will look at that. So darkest valley does not mean just a simple valley with some kind of darkness, but it means darkness, it means grave, it means affliction, it means darkness of a dungeon, it means the pathless desert, it means death like shadow and deep shadow. So all these 6 to 7 meanings we got for this one single word, darkest valley. See how deep that word gives us meaning. So when David tells all these things, he tells these words: even though I walk through the darkness, even though I walk through the grave, even though I walk through the affliction, or even though I walk through the darkness of the dungeon, and even though I walk through the pathless desert, even though I walk through the dead-like shadow, and even though I walk through the deep shadow, he continues with the other things that we will meditate. And this darkest valley is we will keep that on one side. And commonly a valley is a lowland between two mountains or hills, which often has a river flowing through it. So when we look what's a valley, so we can see in the pictures while surfing on the internet. So we can find that there will be two mountains, and a small good looking way will be going through the mountain. Commonly shepherds lead his sheep from one place to another, from one mountain to another. And when he tends his sheep, when he leads his sheep from one place to another, he must come across valleys between the mountains. So without crossing a valley, a shepherd cannot lead his sheep to the mountains. And valleys have good grasses and good streams of water flowing all over that. But here, the valley which David passes is not a good kind of valley. It does not have a good looking one, or kind of a greenery or the water flowing, anything. The path that David came across was dark. It was a dismal way. It was a crooked valley, full of terrors and dangers from every side, terrors from every side. And we will look one such incident in David's life, how a particular incident, a kind of valley of the shadow of death situation in the life of David. And we don't want to read this, but I just want to focus on one particular incident. 1 Samuel chapter 23, from verses 7 and verses following, we see Saul was told that David had gone to Gilead, and he said, God has delivered him into my hands, for David has imprisoned himself by entering a town with gates and bars. So the hidden place of David was exposed to Saul, that David, a person that Saul was searching, was at this particular place, so Gilead. And we see Saul calling up all his troops and all his fellow men, all his army, to chase and to put down this David. So he just took all the great warriors, maybe, and he came to chase this one single fellow, David. And when David learned that Saul was plotting an evil against him, he said to the priest Abiathar, so David told that, bring me an ephod. And David got the ephod and he prayed to God. He requested to God, telling that, will Saul attack me and kill me, or is he coming to destroy me? on account of me? And God immediately tells that, yes, he will coming. He will be coming to destroy you. He will. And another thing he asks is, will the people of Keilah surrender me to Saul? Will Saul come down and just kill me and throw me? Will they be helpful, or will they just surrender me to him? And Nagi and God tells that, yes, they will. So David and his men, about 600 men around him in numbers, they left that place, that village, and kept moving from one place to another. So it was one place, and the places that David went after Keilah was place after place. He just went as a stranger, as a foreigner, as someone who does not have any permanent place to stay. So when Saul was told that David had escaped from that place, so he did not chase David. That David stayed in the wilderness, in the stronghold and the hills of desert of Ziph. And we look at the incident. Day after day, Saul searched for David. So, but David was not caught in Saul's hand, because the verse tells that, but God did not give David into his hands. While David was in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul is coming to take his life even in that new place. So he found another stronghold, another place to dwell, to escape, and he went to another place. So the people of Ziph went to Saul at Gibeah and said to Saul that David is hiding in our place. And they also told that on the hill of Keilah, south of this part, Kish-Himon, and they told Saul that we will be responsible to hand that David over to you. And Saul blesses them that concerning about that matter, and blesses them that may God bless you concerning about this matter. And we see all the hiding place that David went was a failure for David. And wherever David went, Saul chased him. Saul tracked David somehow or the other. And in this place we see David moved, and he was running for his life, taking all the people around him with him. Saul, he did not leave that matter as it is, but he also chased day after day. And every time when he is bored or he is very fond of David, he just immediately calls up his army and chases the David. So as David rested in a place in a desert of Moab, so in a mountain he was staying, and even there the Saul came with his troop. And we see on one side David and his men were passing on, holding up their lives, and on the other side we see Saul and his army were searching for this David. So it was all in one mountain this incident took place. And if time was given to Saul, and he had good time to hunt down David, but it was very close to capture, to kill David and his men. During that very peak moment, a messenger came to Saul saying, "Come quickly, the Philistines are raiding the land." So that very crucial time, Saul just left everything, left the task of catching David and killing him. He just put up all the things as it is and came to his place to solve the problem of that land, about the Philistines. So in all these incidents we find David running from one place to another, from one hiding place to another. These incidents are not just about running, how did David ran, but it tells us how David went through a tougher times in his life. So everywhere David went was a valley of the shadow of death for him. And wherever he turned, either to the right side or to the left, danger was waiting upon him. And death was not very far away from David. It was waiting to take up his life, and it was at hand. It was very close to David. You see, Saul and his troops chased this one David from one place to another, but the locals, so Saul and David had some trouble they had. But what about the locals? So instead of guarding and taking care of David, they themselves went to Saul and told that David is hiding in this particular place. So usually a person who is in danger, so when he comes to you, so you see that they are in very great danger, and if you're not able to protect them, they're going to die. So what we will do? So we will ultimately protect them, we will guard them, we will make them to hide in some hiding place. But in the life of David, we see not even a single person came forward for him to help. So on the one side, we see Saul's pressure of chasing him. On the other side, we see the local people. They come forward, and wherever David went, they tracked him somehow or the other and informed it to Saul and his army. So one side Saul's pressure, and on another side locals' pressure. So I have told you this before months, that David did not have a good sleep before he became a king. So every time he goes out, there was no security of return. So there was no security for his life. And everywhere Saul chased David, he had to be alert. So everywhere he went, David went and hid himself. He must be alert in every situation, and he must be awake. He must be ready to run from one place to another. He must be ready to set all his things and move from one place to another. So day or night, it doesn't matter. Rocky or plains, it doesn't matter. Forest or desert, it doesn't matter. Rain or summer, it doesn't matter. David must be alert in every time, in every situation. So there was no proper food for David. So he was kind of a running fellow, one place to another. He did not have any permanent place. So there was no proper food for David to get strength or to face the challenges. He had also trouble in sleeping. So he had no proper sleep at all. And he had no proper sitting place to relax, nothing. See how worse David's life would have been in that situation. So I came across a picture on the internet, and it has this snail and a blade in it. So when we keep a blade and the edges very sharp, and when we stand the blade, and when we keep a snail above that blade, what happens to it? So when the snail tries to move forward, it hurts it. And if the snail wants to get back, even then it hurts. It damages. And when the snail wants to get over on the left or the right side, and even then it hurts. Or if the snail wants to stay at that same place, even then it hurts. So this is how David's life was. And David's life was like kind of not a peaceful path. His path was not a peaceful one. He did not have any calm path or any happy or very joyful path in his life. So even in such a time, David's mind was like this. It tells that is, though I am in the peril of death, though I am in the midst of dangers, though I am in the midst of the deepest valley, in the midst of dark as a shadow, and even though I am in the dreadful as dead, or rather, though I am under the assaults of death, and have even reason to look upon myself as a dying person, though all around me mock at me and laugh at my running. So people would have definitely laughed at David, because he was an anointed king. So he could have fought Saul and have won Saul, and even God would have given him the victory if he would have attempted to defeat Saul, because Saul did evil in the sight of God. But we see, even in such situations, David tells that even though everyone thinks that this David is gone, this David is surely going to be put to death, so his life is no more, that's it, done with things. So even in that situation, he tells one very important message for us: I will fear no evil. So it will not give way to my fears. David tells, these things, all these shadows in the darkest valley will not make me fear, and I will not allow those fear to enter into my heart, and I won't be afraid of that, but will confidently rely on God's word and his promises. Because David very well knew that God's grace was the one which sustained David in every situation. In each and every part of David's life, it was God's grace that sustained, and only God's grace just led David into the paths of righteousness. He tells that, because God's grace is sufficient for me, so I know that God will be my guide. And he also, to the extreme, he tells that even God allows death for me, and even God will make that death as a good one, as a testimony in sight of him. Even when enemies prevail me and enemies attack me and I'll die in that, even though Saul pursues me or tries to kill me, even Saul kills me, so I will not fear the death, because even the death can be a good one. God will turn that sad moment for a very greater purpose. So David had such a great confidence and such a great faith in his God. That's why he puts that, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. So he was very well confident that his Lord, his God, was always with him wherever he went. Though he tells that, though my situation and life may be like the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear anything. I will not fear the death. I will not fear what happens to me. And I will not fear anyone, any person. So this is a very surprising one to look. It surprised me, looking at how a person can be like David, facing all these challenges and telling all these words of affirmation and faith. A common man can easily tell all these things. So even though I walk through this path and that path, I'll fear no evil, because a common man who has not experienced such ways and such period, he cannot put him in that place of David, and he cannot connect himself with that Psalms. But a person who has faced all these challenges, who has gone through all the struggles and failures in his life, he comes forward and tells that I will fear no evil. So how come David did not fear all that? So the reason why David did not fear all these things was one reason. So it was only one reason that made him to tell like this. And he told, for you are with me. Because God was with David, that's why he did not have any fear about anything. though David's life was something darker, he had one hope, that his God was always with him. And today, David's Lord becomes our Lord too. And as he was with David, he will always be with his people. So one important question that I want to put forward: when God is with us, who is he? So when God is with us, who is he? So when God is with us, God is not a simple one, not a person who is just with us. He's Immanuel to us. So one of my habits while I read the Bible in my devotion time is that wherever I come across any passage, any verse or an incident, and when I look, God was with somebody else, and God was with this person and that person. Whenever I come across all these things and read this, after reading that line, above that I will also read Immanuel. I will put the word Immanuel on top of it. So many people ask that, where is Jesus in the Old Testament? So is there any evidence that Jesus was in the Old Testament? And people sometimes ask and all these questions and mock people. So, and they just make ashamed God's people by asking them, show me the evidence that Jesus was in the Old Testament, and we will believe and we will repent of our sins. But one thing is missing here. What is it? Because in the Old Testament, Jesus was present in every pages. And in Genesis 1:1 we see, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That word in Hebrew means more than one substance. So there itself the debate is over, gets over. So we see, where is Jesus in the life of David? He is Immanuel in the life of David. So we think the word Immanuel is a New Testament concept. Most often we think that. So only when the Christmas time comes and when we sing carols and read verses and we sing all the Christmas hymns, and only then we realize that this word Immanuel is kind of a New Testament word, and a kind of word that fits only in the New Testament context. But we miss one thing, that but whatever you think about the presence of Jesus in the Old Testament, this is for sure. God was with everyone who feared God. God was with them in every situation as Immanuel to them, as an Immanuel in their lives. So we find wherever you see God with somebody else while reading a Bible, we find He was Immanuel in their lives. And that's why, and that's where the title of today's message comes: Immanuel in the life of David. Immanuel in the life of David. See, that's why in the New Testament, Jesus tells the people around him, David himself calls him Lord. He tells that David himself called me Lord. How then can I be his son? How can you call me as David's son when I was David's Lord? So telling that before David was born, even when Abraham was born, even when Adam was born, even when everything was created, I was. And in the life of David, I was. So God was with David in every situation. We see, not even in one situation, when after we read all these things, not even in one single situation, David told God that, why do you allow these kinds of trouble in my life? So why this path of thorns in my life? Where are you, Lord? What are you doing in my life? And why the valley of the shadow of death occurs to me? All these questions he never asked God. But one thing that made David run his life boldly was, God was with him. That's the thing. So he very well understood that God is always an Immanuel in the life of David. So that's why we see, even though he walked in the middle of the death, the realm of death, he did not fear, because he knew that his God is always on his side. On the left, on the right, on the front, or the back, God was always on his side. And nobody was with David when he went through all these struggles. When David went through all this deepest, darkest valley and the shadow of death, nobody else was with David to strengthen him. Not even his brothers were with him. Not even his father was with him. Not his friends were with him. Yet, David felt the Immanuel's presence in his life. The amount of pressure and challenges that David faced in his life was very much, because at a very young age, these kinds of chasing and hiding was a common thing for David. Very, very young age. Not too young, but compared to Saul, it was young age. So, in a very young age, David faced challenges that great people would face. And we see, if David had not got Immanuel in his life, if he had not obeyed, or he did not have God as his Immanuel, so if David was not God's sheep, his life would have perished at the very early stage of his life. So when David fought against the lion, and at that point of time itself, David's life would have come to an end. So, in the present time, we see today many Christians ask many questions about God. And God promises that as I was Immanuel in the life of David, I will also be Immanuel in your life too. And today, as I told you before, many people have come with many questions, and I believe that, and I think that you too will have so many questions in your lives. So looking at all the challenges and the troubles and the struggles that you are facing through right now, so you come to a conclusion telling that, where is God? So I'm seeking him alone, and I'm so devoted to him. I'm just praying, I'm fasting to him, I'm reading my Bible daily. And then why these things are happening in my life? And where is he when I suffer? Where is the Immanuel when I suffer the most? I know that he is watching. The Bible tells that God is watching everybody. If he is watching my cry, and if he knows my situation, then where is God? Then where is he? So you might think that all your family members have washed their hands on you, and many relatives have gone very far, leaving you alone, and many friends have gone miles across you, not even considering you, not even helping you, just passing through. And people whom you thought that they will travel along with you in every situation, so you would have thought that they will come along with you till the end, and now when you look back and watch them, they are no more. They are no more following you. They are no more taking care of you. They are no more near you. They are very far from you. And nobody is with me. So most commonly people of God think all these things. They think that nobody is with me. So everybody has left me. And I thought that my God will be with me always in every situation, but he is not present. So I cannot feel God in any part of my life. So I thought God will be with me, but he has also left me alone as the other people had left me. So this trouble is out of my hands, and I'm going through a tougher times in my life. So you can ask, where is this Immanuel? So where is this Immanuel in my life? Is he sleeping somewhere? Or is he gone too far from me? So, or this Immanuel is just relaxing, stretching out his arms and legs and sitting in the heaven and watching all these things. So, by looking all these negative things and the challenges and the struggles and the obstacles and all kinds of troubles and the darkest valley moments and the fear of the death moments, so we feel very worse at that time. So many times we see people committing suicide because even the people of God committing suicide, and they just end up their life at one level. So I personally know a few people who have ended up their lives, though they were Christians, though they followed the Bible, though they came to the church, participated in everything, though they were very keen in hearing the message of God, yet they failed and just ended up their precious life. They just hanged up. They just ended up their life thinking that it's enough. So I'm going through all these struggles. I'm going through all these pains and suffering. And where is this God? I cannot feel God in my life. So is he God or not? So am I following the right God? Am I following the living God? So if yes, then why all these things happen to me? The other people who do not know God, they are very good. They have a very good and very beautiful life. But I, a follower of Christ, running to Christ and all the time praying to Him, but there is no answer for me. They all are good, very good. They all are very strengthened and motivated, but I am in the low level. And some people think quitting of Christianity. So the reason why all the struggle and all the trouble comes is because Christianity. That's the reason. So when I leave the Christianity, the way, so maybe my life will be better than this. Maybe some may plan to leave Christ Himself and the church and the fellowship of the believers. So when people face all these challenges, all these questions come and they just run through their mind all the day long. And they come to a conclusion. Why to seek this God? Why to come to this church? Why to pray to Him? Even though my situation is same as before, even though nothing has changed in my life, then why still holding on to this God who is not answering at all? And why am I still alive in this world, thinking and just waiting that one day or the other the things that are against me will change, and nothing has ever happened in my life? So all these questions may be pressuring you, and you may not come up and tell all these things. See, I face these challenges and that. But deep inside you may face all these struggles and questions within you. Just one small short story I just want to tell you. One beautiful night, we see a very good follower of Christ. He is sleeping, taking rest, and as he was sleeping, he had a dream. And when he had a dream, he was just stunning, and he just immediately woke up from his dream. And after relaxing, he again slept, and the dream continued. And the dream was that one night that person dreamt a dream, and as he was walking on the beach, so all these things happen in the dream of that person while he was sleeping. In the dreams, he dreamt that he was walking on the seashore, a very beautiful beach, very beautiful things, plants around him, a beautiful sand. It's a very, very good place to walk. And he see his Lord, his God was also walking alongside. So God was walking just right next to him, and he was walking in this place, and they were walking on the seashore. In the sky, on the sky, God showed him his life events, all the good and the bad moments, all the pains and the suffering and the very good stages of his life. We see, as he was watching his life on the sky, all the incidents just came, and he noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand in that dream. So, and that 2 prints was, one belonged to him, one set, and another set was his God. Jesus' footprints was on the other side. See, after the last scene of the flashing, the last scene came there, and all the good and bad moments ended, and God it was the last incident, and he showed him. After looking at the last scene on the sky about his life, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. And as he noticed that many times along the paths of his life, especially at the lowest moment, at the saddest moment, and the very deep, sorrowful, and the shadow of death kind of moment, there was only one set of pairs. One set of pairs was on the seashore. So this one literally troubled that person. So he asked God about that. God, you too are like man. All of them just came in my good times, left me in my bad times, and you too are the same. What I told you before, when I followed you, I will follow you till my lifetime, and you also promised me that even I will take care of you, and I will be with you always. And I see only one set of footprints there. If you are a good God, you must have walked along with me, right? And I don't see your footprints, Lord. So you have left me to struggle. You have left me all alone to face my challenges on my own. And you have went relaxing somewhere and just looking at all my oppression and my struggles. And he was very much confused, and he was very much troubled with this one. And he felt very bad that God had done whatever God had done. It's very bad, seemed very bad for him. And he asked again and again, why, Lord? Why do I suffer? Why were you not present in my lowest time? When I suffered, where were you? And immediately, Jesus smiled at him. God smiled at him. He told her, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you as I have promised you before. Never ever during your trials and testings. So Jesus explains that I used to walk beside you. I used to walk next to you. So the extra pair of footprints was visible for you. And when you saw only one set of footprints, it was I who carried you in my arms. It was not that I allowed you to walk through all these challenges. I know that when I allow you to walk alone, you will perish on the way. You will surely die. That's why I knew that it will hurt you more. It will destroy your life. And that's why even in that time, I carried you into my arms, into my palm, not leaving you to walk. So that's why you see only single footprint. So many times we ask many questions without knowing the other end that God has allowed for us. So we may be like that person asking, why, Lord? Where were you when I was struggling with these things? God tells that I were with you. I was with you in every situation. Now, I was with you always, and there was not an incident, not a single situation where I left you and made you to struggle. I just hold it on my hands and led you from one place to another. So, God is always with us. He is Immanuel. So it is only that at some point of time, we fail to realize or recognize His presence. And God is everywhere, in every place, in every people who earnestly seek Him. Just because we don't recognize His presence, we come to a conclusion that there is no God. So, one small incident that I want to tell you, my school incident. So, as I was studying some 4th to 5th standard, it seemed, and I and my friend were talking to each other. I just placed my pencil on my ears, on this place, and I told him that in my church there are brothers doing carpentering profession. They just place their pens or pencils after measuring something, and I also kept the same way as they keep. And after a few minutes, I just took away all my books, emptied all my desk, just searched for my pencil. So I just asked every other friends whether you have took my pencil, and I just searched below, and all my desk and pockets were searched, and I found no pencil in those places. And immediately this friend of mine just turned to me and he asked me, "What are you searching?" And I was like, I'm searching my pencil that I don't know where I kept that. And he told me, what's there in your ears? What is that? And only then I realized that the pencil went nowhere, but it was on my ears, above my ears. I did not notice it. I was searching on the other sides. I was asking people, but I failed to recognize that I had a pencil on my ears. That is what Christians often do. They search God outside, search God everywhere. They go to every meeting. They search God there. But God tells them, "See, I am with you always. I am Immanuel. I am with you. You are searching all around and all places, and you have failed to search me within yourself." And that is what God is expecting us to seek Him inside of us, because He is inside of us as Immanuel, very close to us. You see, when we don't, as I told before, when we fail to recognize His presence, and that's where all the questions arises. There is no God, there is no promise, there is no Christianity, there is no good things in that, and there is no God. And today God wants us to look back at our lives. He wants to look the paths that we have crossed across. If it was not God who brought us to this far, we would have perished a very long time before. And our enemies would have not just eaten up, they just would have swallowed us alive. So that's what would have happened to all of us. And God tells today that when you cried and when you felt empty, when you were hopeless, and when you came across the valley of the shadow of death, and when you asked all these questions, and when you went through all these difficult times, it was I who brought you this far. So it was my hands that holded you back. It was my presence that led you to this place. And it was my guidance, and that is the reason that you and I are living today. So it was God's leading, and it was God's presence that has led our lives very beautiful to this, even up to this level. So it is Immanuel who had sustained David's life, and He is there for you today. He is there for us today. And no one will accompany you in your life's journey. Your parents will be leaving you up to certain level. Your children will leave you up to certain level. But even though nobody can accompany you in your journey, it is God who accompanies you It is God who leads you because He is Immanuel. He takes care of every situation of your life. He is the one who will come along with you throughout your lifetime. So your friends may leave you halfway. Everybody, person whom you are believing may leave you the halfway. But God will never leave us on the middle of the road. So that's why the Immanuel promises us that till the end of the earth, all the days may pass. Throughout all the days, I will be with you. So God promises us that He will never leave us nor forsake us. So each and every moment, He confirms that He's always with us. So the last part, it tells that your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Your rod, which means it's a correcting part. Rod is for correction and staff is for direction, is for guidance. So once these sheep go astray by asking all these questions, where is God? And so He just corrects with His words. Hey, come here, come in this pen, come into this pen of mine, and I will take care of you. So whenever we tend to leave God and leave His ways, God with His rod just puts us back into His pen. So, and when Immanuel puts in His pen back again, He shows us the right direction so that we will be comforted through His shepherding. So, when you and I are God's sheep, there will be no lack of guidance, there will be no lack of correction, there will be no lack of food or water, shelter, anything. God will provide everything, every part of your life. So your rod, which means, which also can be understood in God's word. Your staff, which means God's promise. So we can understand this verse like this. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are Immanuel in my life. Your words and your promises, they will comfort me. So this is the assurity that God gives us today through His word, through this Psalms 23 verse 4. So He always reminds us that He is always with us in each and every situation. So think about David. So how David faced all these challenges. So David was a very ordinary person. And when God can sustain and bring David into a good path and bring David through the darkest valley to the good place, why can't God, the Immanuel of our lives, can do that again? He promises, I will be Immanuel in your life. So it's up to us. So if you are confused with all the questions, it is God leaves the choice into our hands. So whether you want to trust God and His timing and His guidance, or you want to take your own route and suffer. God once also tells that if I am your shepherd, I will be your Immanuel. I will be Immanuel in your life. I will be always with you, so that though you may walk through all these dangers and suffering and pain, you will go and reach the shore, the other part, the other end. So many Christians have misunderstood that if I become a follower of Christ, there won't be any crisis in my life. There won't be any trouble, any problems in my life. No, that's not what our Bible teaches us. So in this world you will face challenges, but fear not, I have overcome the world. So God promises that I have overcome the world, so you too will be overcoming all the struggles and barriers. And with the final thing that God wants us to look at is that He is a Immanuel. He is Immanuel. He was Immanuel in the life of David. He will be Immanuel in the life of each and every one of us who have seated here.